K.C. Singh, let's come back to what we are hearing. There seems to be a consensus that Sheikh Hasina botched this up and botched it up badly. From an Indian perspective, surely our High Commission in Dhaka and indeed the government would have known what was happening. This is one of the few countries in the neighborhood with which we've had a strong relationship in the last decade. Is that the reason why India was reluctant in a way to act, to demand from Sheikh Hasina a free and fair election or ensure that the students were in a way pacified?
Look, Rajdeep, I've said she very shrewdly played China against India. And BJP's priorities are very clear there. And secondly, she said, I'm opposing the Jamaat-e-Islami, which has been close to Pakistan, which is a right-wing party, which is involved with militancy, terrorism. She's hanged a few of them, leaders of Jamaat-e-Islami, for collaboration with Pakistan. All that was well. But what she had to do was, after you have obtained what you think is recompense, you start then building bridges. You start then reaching out. Now, you can't make multiple mistakes. So what she did was, she brought all her opponents together. Youth have started it. Jamaat-e-Islami was already sulking. They were in a corner because their leadership had been decimated and decapitated. And BNP was locked up. The son of general is sitting in England, I think. And Khaleda Zia is at home.
No, but did India do the right thing? Did India, Casey, do the right thing by backing Hasina in the belief that Sheikh was a bulwark against these potential extremist, so-called anti-India forces?
Well, that's precisely the mistake that I'm pointing out, that when Americans do it time and again. It's not that India has done it. They make this mistake. How did Arab Spring start, which brought down 3 dictators? It was one fruit seller who's beaten up by the police in Tunisia. And then you see, that means when you're already having cracks in a society, there's a lot of disenchantment. It needs a spark. The students provided the spark and she misread it. She's not read it. But what are we doing in Delhi? As I told you, I wrote a piece in January, 6 months ago. I tweeted and 50,000 people have read it. And the article's title was Caution and Not Complacency. At that stage, NSA has gone to Hindon now. NSA should have been in Dhaka then and telling them, ma'am, I think you need to make sure that all these forces do not coalesce, do not worsen it. You have to soften your stand. You have to reach out to the opposition. You have to create divisions in them and therefore create a bridge. Don't shut all the doors. Otherwise, you'll have an explosion. Did we have that chat with her? I don't know. If we didn't, why not? Is it because we thought then she'll say, no, I'm giving this contract to China. I will bring China in. So I think she was using the China factor. And therefore, India was a little cautious in not pushing her beyond a point.
Let me get my guest in once again from there in London at this moment. Zulkarnain, your views to what you're just hearing. Are you hopeful that this turmoil now is over, or do you fear it will worsen?
Well, I'm hopeful that it will get better because the crowd that you see here, like, they have had their ultimate explosion, like the ultimate explosion that, like, which led to all this mass uprise was.
So you see the streets now becoming quieter with the army now fully in charge.
I think it will. Like, I think in coming days, once there is a caretaker government or interim government formed, and if that is accepted by all the bodies, I think automatically it would tone down.
Okay.
Because the explosion.
Let me at this moment also welcome another guest who's joining us. Veena Sikri has been former Indian ambassador, High Commissioner to Bangladesh. I appreciate your joining us, ma'am. K.C. Singh was earlier telling us that he believes that India should have read the warning signals in January itself. Some of our Bangladeshi guests are also saying we should have put pressure on Sheikh Hasina to ensure free and fair elections. Has India been behind the curve and been caught napping in a way?
Let me say 2 points quite clearly in answer to both those queries. Firstly, the elections were open, but the BNP chose not to participate. Now, you cannot choose not to participate and then say that they were not a participatory elections. As far as the Jamaat-e-Islami is concerned, they were debarred because of a High Court decision, which was a long pending case on their viability as a political party, because they do not accept the constitution of Bangladesh as being higher than their own party constitution. So the two largest opposition parties did not take part for different reasons. So neither of these reasons were the doing of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Coming to the present problem, when you're describing the situation, yes, it did begin as a students' quota reform movement. But that quota reform movement was on an issue on which they were on the same page with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Actually, it was in 2018, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina herself abolished the quota. For 6 years, there was no quota. When the High Court in June of this year reversed the Sheikh Hasina decision, she went to the Supreme Court. And on 21st of July, the Supreme Court gave a verdict that the quota would be reduced to 5% with 2% extra. In the meanwhile, it is the political parties with the Chhatra League from the Awami League, the Shibir from the Jamaat-e-Islami, and the BNP, they got onto the street and they took over this entire issue.
So you don't agree with Casey's argument that there were cautionary signs in January itself? That in January itself, the manner in which the election had been conducted had led to an element of polarization, and that only needed as they would say, it just was a volcano waiting to erupt.
The polarization has been there for 50 years. The vote bank is divided in Bangladesh with 35% with the Awami League, 35% with the BNP, a few percentage with the Jamaat-e-Islami, and the rest are the undecided. This polarization has been getting worse and worse and worse. Please don't forget, there were the two military dictators, General Ziaur Rahman, who created the BNP, and General Eshrad, who created the Jatiyo Dal. So this polarization is not new to Bangladesh. And it has been getting worse and worse. When I was myself posted there, and it was the government of Prime Minister Begum Khalida Zia. I have seen this at first hand. I have seen exactly what you're accusing Sheikh Hasina now happening at that time.
Sure.
And at all times, India has always been interested in the stability and in the continued development and in democracy in Bangladesh. Of course, we've always, the democratic institutions, whether it is judiciary, whether it is the election commission, all these are very much interested in that. But at this moment, to blame the students for this, I think it has morphed into a political, even the Daily Star published yesterday, the numbers, because at that time, up to yesterday, that means day before, but yesterday it came in the papers, that 204 people had died. But of them, 53 were students. The rest were political activists, the rest were civilian policemen, and so on. Of course, after that, we've had even more deaths yesterday and today. And look at what you're showing as visuals. Are these students on the street? I heard Mohammed Yunus saying on another show that these are celebrating, but they are vandalizing the statue of Sheikh Mujib.
You're saying that, but Suvir Bhaumik, you want to respond to what you're hearing from Veena Sikri? She seems to disagree with what many of you are saying. She seems to see this almost a form of anarchy which has taken over the streets. This is not popular protest.
Sorry. This is not anarchy, and it is not instigated by any other third parties. It is been participated by the general people of Bangladesh.
Okay, Zulkarnain, you made that point. You're saying it's general people. Subir, you want to respond to that?
No, I will add three things. First, I will tell you that I've seen several of these movements in Bangladesh, in my own country. At some point, Lumpens do infiltrate this movement. They make hay while the sun shines. The loot part jo hai, this is not done by the students. This is done by the Lumpen elements, the Tokais of Dhaka, as Zulkar will hear me out. You know, these are people who will infiltrate because they will take advantage. Like the political opposition. You can't blame the opposition for not fishing in trouble to others. Every opposition will like to, take advantage of this. So there is an element of, criminal or, this kind of lumpen elements who get into this movement. That is number one. So you see this kind of vandalization. Now you raised a very important point, with Zulkar, and I want to say what I have to say on this. Is this getting peaceful? No, sir. There will be extensive vengeance. Knowing Bangladesh the way I do, I am sure that it's data. People who belong to Awami League, people who belong to Chhatra League, people who have been, big guys for last 15
So-
years, a lot of them will be targeted.
Okay, so
That is a thought.
you're saying the
How much
one.
I see.
I take your point. I take your point. You believe
So
that the
there will be
violence.
vendetta. So here, I think what Veena says is right. We are interested in the stability. So we should engage the present dispensation in Bangladesh with the army, with the interim government, that minorities and others,
I'm going to,
political
and
vendettas
Subir,
are not
I
happening.
have
We have a
limited,
lot of people.
I have limited time. I just want to get therefore quick comments on the possibility that a destabilized Bangladesh, KC, is bad news for India in a neighborhood where we've already seen instability with other neighbors. This is the worst possible news. A short, quick answer, KC, and then Veena Sikri.
Absolutely correct, because it gives a possibility for Pakistan and China to step in. China is already there, but once Pakistan comes in, then they start destabilizing the whole of Northeast. The stability that this government has been trying to bring there, because that will be a big regression. So I think that's the biggest problem, and China will come in then more forthrightly and more strongly into the country. So that's what they've been trying to do, which we've been opposing till now.
Veena Sikri, are you equally concerned that a destabilized Bangladesh, possibly with some extremist elements also playing a greater role, is bad news for India?
Yes, as long as the extremist elements are going to be there, it is definitely bad news for India. I think India has to be in close touch with the present army chief, who has made the interim list, and he's hoping that with the interim government being activated, the protesters will be off the streets. But right now, looking at the vandalization, looking at the burning and looting, I was on another channel where they showed police stations being burnt and the weapons being stolen from police stations. That is also happening. So it's an augury for future violence. It's not an augury for everything coming under control. It is a matter of great worry.
So you're saying...
India has imposed a curfew and a 200-meter curfew along the border with Bangladesh. So we are hoping to insulate ourselves from the effects of any impact of any of this instability on the neighboring regions in India. It is indeed a very serious matter.